Said Drengskapr, an Old Norse compound meaning courage, high-mindedness, manliness, categories of behavior that one uses to define one as being a member of an honorable man or being strong, valiant, brave, well-spoken, honorable in his dealings with family and others, hospitable, and having a proper manly appearance. Men debate manliness today. Men have always debated manliness. Among the men of 13th century Iceland, they used a practice called Mannjafnaðr, man comparison. The Mannjafnaðr created a public forum wherein men, following the rules of debate, argued that each possessed superior masculinity and social worth through a series of boasts and insults. These boastful and insulting utterances fall into a series of categories. I define these categories as physicality, being strong, being skilled with weapons, having great victories in battle. Social duties, defending your kinsmen and your thingmen in lawsuits, being a great public speaker, being honorable towards your family, showing proper hospitality. Sexual regularity, which was an insult-only category. These insults fell into three subgroups. Being sexually deviant, which often meant that you were taking the submissive, weaker role in a same-sex relationship, being allegedly more skilled at woman's work than at men's work, or the extremely scandalous category of preferring sex to battle, which, honestly, I'm guilty of. There was appearance, which went both ways. A good appearance was praiseworthy, while an ugly appearance was insult-worthy, which relates to a common medieval trope that the physical reflects the interior. So a beautiful person was clearly a good person, and an ugly person was clearly morally bankrupt. And the final category, which is the violation of alimentary taboo, clearly this is insult only. The largest percentage of these utterances focuses on actions performed in the public sphere, martial conquest, legal matters, public speaking. These public actions form the basis for Drengskapr, the Norse code of manly honor. Mannjafnaðr performances debate the worth of men. It does bear clarifying, however, that the factuality of the deeds discussed is never questioned. Instead, the duelists dispute the significance of these deeds and their interpretation as being relevant to discerning a man's worth. And while much has been said and will continue to be said about these performances, I will focus now on two case studies, one in the Morkinskinna and one in the Magnusson section of Snorri Sturluson's Heimskringla. These are both sagas of the Norwegian kings. They are loosely histories dramatizing events from the lives of the kings of Norway. These two sagas present two different versions of the same Mannjafnaðr performed by two brother kings of Norway, Eystein and Sigurd I Magnusson. When their father Magnus died, the rule of Norway was split between the two. The older Eystein handled internal domestic affairs, Sigurd handled external affairs and military conquests. The instigating event can be loosely defined as Sigurd and his retinue returned from fighting in the Second Crusade, and they've decided that everything everyone else does who didn't go fight in the Crusades is completely worthless, and they are treating them with disrespect and with rude behavior. A plenary indulgence will do that for your ego. So when the host of the party asks, King Eystein to intervene, Eystein chooses the practice of Mannjafnaðr to rebuke his brother. And while there are many avenues for analysis, my focus will be a culturally and linguistically informed thematic analysis. As Mannjafnaðr follow the rules for debate, it should follow that, like a debate, the duelists take up opposing positions on an aspect of proper manly behavior specific to the instigating situation. The academic literature largely ignores the topic of theme in saga verbal dueling. When noted, its mention barely escapes footnote status. Clover argues that crimes of kingship emerge as a central theme. Swinson mentions, more specifically in the Morkinskinna, this Mannjafnaðr exposes the tension beneath the surface of the brothers' rule. This form of thematic analysis really does nothing to explain what the duelists are actually talking about, and relies on a very superficial, in many instances, content analysis to discuss what's going on. And while scholars have noted that themes may exist in individual Mannjafnaðr and across the collective body, no systematic analysis of these themes and of their importance to the cultural conceptions of Norse masculinity and to the literary genre of the saga has been produced. That's my purpose here. I will perform such an analysis which will account for the repetition of both form and content, as well as relative length of the utterances. I will illuminate the primary themes discussed in each Mannjafnaðr, and from those themes I will discuss what I call the meta-theme, the central question that the duelists are actually debating. Beginning with the Morkinskinna, I find two interrelated themes in between these two brothers: physical strength and social superiority. Sigurd begins the duel and spends 3 of his 4 turns arguing for his physical superiority by saying that he is Maður sterkari och sundur better, vapen för egi there on thu, och arith I tournament, and in his final turn, a victorious veteran of the Crusades. This turn is significantly longer than any of his previous turns. He also indicates the significance of his actions by punctuating his final turn with pointed musings that, while he took the city of Sidon with help from the king of Jerusalem, he did not see his brother there. Sigurd's argument then is, if a king must be superior to other men, and if men exemplify Drengskapr through physical and martial prowess, then a good king must be superior to all other men in those arenas. To that end, he cites his physical strength, his skill at military games and tournaments, and his victories in famous battles where he fought against the enemies of Christendom. King Eystein concedes his younger brother's superiority in the martial arena. He chooses instead to focus on his arena, domestic and social duties. He begins by arguing, Maður hagri och tefli kneftafo better era that mina vert on afur thit, arguing here that social skills and skill at strategic games are of equal worth to his brother's masculine martial pursuits. He continues to argue that handling disputes for one's countrymen is of greater value than his brother's skilled weapons and riding off in tournaments. To this, Sigurd counters, while his brother is wise in handling disputes, he often makes false promises, which is bad for a king. Eystein defends this by saying that if new evidence comes to light, he alters his decision according to what is now known, something his brother refuses to do. Eystein concludes with this long list of 12 deeds he did for the people of Norway, building churches, establishing safe harbors, establishing trade routes, bringing territory in through diplomacy, and he punctuates his speech with 4 variations on the phrase Manu der men muna at Eystein konungur hefur verið I Norge. He argues that a good king, worthy of remembrance, possesses the social skills necessary to govern successfully and performs deeds that benefit his people. His evidence for this superiority includes his superiority at chess, his oral eloquence and skill at mediation, and a series of projects he undertook that directly benefited the people of Norway, as opposed to Sigurd's venturing off and fighting in the Holy Land. The meta-theme of this iteration of the contest arises from the analysis of the interrelationship of these two themes. Phrased as a question, I state the meta-theme as being, what sort of deeds make for a better king? The party host alludes to this when he tells Eystein that his brother and his men hold the deeds of all who did not fight in the Crusades to be worthless. Eystein indirectly states the theme when he asks his brother, Eram with egi sooner Magnus konungs, jafin bornir. He argues that Sigurd appears to be disgraced by Eystein and then asks, what do you see as the greatest difference between us? Additionally, Eystein's repeated needling about how others will remember that he was king in Norway and not his younger brother references this meta-theme and alludes to the saga writer's answer. The central dispute in this duel, as it relates to both the content and meta-theme, is whether tending to domestic matters is more important than martial exploits done abroad. The contested categories of kingly behavior relate to the social duties and martial abilities of both men. The prevailing opinion, as depicted in the majority of the Icelandic sources, and within the scholarly literature, is that Sigurð's martial conquest should trump Eystein's handling of domestic affairs. While the narrator provides no direct internal evidence, the length of Eystein's final turn, which in the edition I used was a page and a half long, and which is much longer and much more content heavy than any other turn taken by either brother, and the repetition of the "they will remember I was king," and the silence that follows his long speech, suggests that in this case, when the men are kings, actions done that benefit the people are more important than those done that provide glory for the king himself. In a larger work known as the Heimskringla, Snorri Sturluson adapted this verbal duel in a section named the Magnusson. His retelling of this duel between the brother kings contains two themes with a different twist. He focuses on their boyhood deeds and then moves to their adult deeds as kings. From the themes in Snorri's work, a conception that one's upbringing plays a role in the character of a man becomes emergent. While Eystein argues that this duel emerges to amuse those at a drinking party, the narrative voice tells us at the end of the duel, "Eftir that flog nuthu their bather og fartvegi reith." The anger from both parties suggests that there is at least tension beneath the peace of the brothers' co-rule of Norway, and that this brings that to light and provides what some folklorists and anthropologists would like to call a safety valve to dissipate the steam before it becomes violent. However, while the Morkinskinna focused on the location of the deeds, home and abroad, and the type of deeds, domestic versus international affairs, Snorri takes his verbal duel and adds the upbringing and education of the princes as important elements. This proves to be a background motivator for Eystein initiating the verbal duel. As earlier sections of the saga recount, there has been much dispute over the decision to split Norway between the two brothers. Eystein acknowledges this by saying, "Un ek taka thik brother til Jafnaðr mans mer. Ferry ek that til at Jafnaðr hoffum vid bather och Jafna egen, geri ek ingi mun atar akarar etar of fröjru." The first thing is the boyhood deeds. Each brother now has 3 turns to discuss his upbringing. Both of them focus on their physical activities as boys. Sigurd contends that he is superior at wrestling, swimming, and archery. All of his boasts relate to his physical strength and his endurance, as being superior to those of his older brother. His swimming accomplishment is his ability to drag Eystein under the water. "Mantu, ferstu forum sundit met okker, ek mata kefja thik, effekt vilja?" Eystein responds in his 3 turns by boasting of his superiority in agility games, speed swimming, and skating and skiing. All of his boasts relate to dexterity and balance, and Eystein escalates the duel in his 2nd turn by boasting about 2 activities in which he is superior, specifically skating and skiing. Sigurd responds to this tactic by ending his boast about his superior bow skill with the argument that Eystein could not even draw his bow, "Thotu spyrner fotum," as a further suggestion of his brother's weakness as a boy, implying that such weakness makes him weak as a man and a king. As a note to those unfamiliar with medieval archery, the draw weight of the average longbow during this period was between 150 and 180 pounds, thus making physical strength necessary for an archer. And archaeologists can tell an archer's corpse by, among other things, there will be spurs on the wrist from the repeated grinding of the bones as one draws back the bow. Superiority through kingly pursuits is the 2nd theme of this duel, and Sigurd, who initiates the theme change in his 4th turn, continues to boast about his superior physical strength as a marker of him being a superior king. "Þess þykir mikil munur at that hofþing vigra, at sá yfirmaður skal vera annara manna, se mikil I flokki, styrkur og vapenför, betur an aðrir menn og afsar og aðendur, það flestir eru sannir." Eystein riposts by changing the categories discussed twice in his turn. This is a very common tactic for Eystein. First he changes to appearance. "Thiat frithleikum somir in besti bunather," and then to social duties. kan ek och miklu better till laga on thu, oxfaf hvat sem vit skulum tala, emek miklu slitterthari. The double categorical transition allows Eystein to position himself within a realm of discussion in which he is more secure. During the final two turns of the duel, Sigurd rebuffs Eystein's assault by negating Eystein's skill at law, same reason in Morkinskinna, and brings the focus back to the realm of physical superiority, again his conquest in the Crusades. He argues first that while Eystein does know more about law and does speak more eloquently than he does, Eystein often breaks his promises to those whose cases he is settling, and og dat ekki konungligt. On his final turn, again he shifts back to martial conquest, spending his next three utterances describing his expeditions and battles in foreign lands. How he swam the river Jordan, how he fought against the Saracens, how he bludgeoned blue men off to the devil. These princely expeditions he contrasts with his brothers staying at home and being princessly in the first of these three terms. Dat hefur verið málmanna at versu era ek for Orlandi vari helder hoftinglig on thu sas hema methan sem dottir for their things. While his final turn keeps the focus of his argument on the good he did for his people of Norway, Eystein responds to Sigurd's emasculating comment in kind, reminding his brother that it was he who financially supported these princely expeditions as if he were dowering a sister. Ak ek gertha þinn heman sem systur mína, athur þú yrþur búin til höfur. He then returns to discussing the things he did for the people of Norway, building churches, harbors, and royal halls. All of these things, he argues, were on nyt samlingar var hit landi varu, while all of Sigurd's expeditions were of litik gagnriki, to Norway. In his duel-ending turn, Eystein does manage to impugn on Sigurd's physical prowess by reminding his younger brother that his tales of physical and martial dominance abroad do not match with his less than triumphant return to Norway in Drengskapr. Like Morkinskinna, the meta-theme of the Magnusson asks the question, what makes a better king? While the Morkinskinna focuses on the distinctions in the realms of the brothers' adult endeavors, Snorri, a historian and Gothi, roughly translated regional governor, priest, chieftain, prefaces these divergent foci with a discussion on the upbringing and education of princes, with the apparent equality of their upbringing and adolescent exploits, evidenced by their three rounds of boasting relating to physical superiority in roughly the same things. Snorri argues that what makes a great king is what the king does as an adult that benefits his countrymen. Thus, while Sigurd earned great honor and renown for himself by fighting in the Crusades, Eystein's building projects provided more benefit for those in need of a king's assistance in Norway. Thus, like the Morkinskinna, the answer to the metathematic question is that a king becomes great through actions that benefit the people of his kingdom and not solely himself. As I have demonstrated, analyzing the themes of the Norse Mannjafnaðr offer another angle through which to comprehend the conception and performance of masculinity in the Norse world. The themes of the duels relate specifically to the situational context that initiated the verbal duel. Each duel contains a meta-theme, which I argue is the primary question and aspect of masculinity that the men are debating. Each has its own answer, suggesting that the broader question, what makes a male a Norse man, was not inscribed in the Futhark onto stone, but dependent upon circumstances and situations, and something that was discussed and debated up through the end, at least of the saga writing era. When the opponents are king, we find that while physical strength and repeated victories in martial conquest will earn a man great honor, and may even garner him the crown, what makes a man a good king, a king worthy of remembrance and honor by his people, is if he's able to put aside his own personal quest for honor and glory, and perform deeds that benefit his people as a whole.